The finish line is right there. Mat Armstrong can see it. The Bugatti Chiron Persport that Bugatti declared impossible to rebuild independently has driven. It has moved under its own power with Mat Armstrong behind the wheel feeling the blood, leaving his feet as 1,500 horsepower pushed through a rebuilt transmission in a Miami workshop yard. The finish line is visible, and there is a time bomb sitting inside this car that nobody has talked about yet. A time bomb that was set before Mat Armstrong ever touched the car, before the rebuild started, before the VIN was locked and the parts were refused and the CEO made his video. A time bomb set by one decision made by the original owner on one specific day. The day Alex Gonzalez drove this Bugatti without coolant, and the consequences of that decision, quiet and invisible and completely unaddressed throughout the entire rebuild, might be about to arrive at the worst possible moment, right at the finish line. Think about what it means to drive a Bugatti Chiron without coolant, not a family hatchback, not a car with a single water pump and a single cooling circuit and a single shaft seal separating coolant from oil. A Bugatti Chiron, a car with a W16 engine, 4 turbochargers, multiple cooling circuits, each with their own pump, the main W16 cooling circuit, the charge air cooling circuit managing the thermal load of 4 turbos compressing air to feed 16 cylinders, the gearbox oil cooling circuit, each circuit with its own pump, each pump with its own shaft seal, and shaft seals are designed to run wet. Coolant on one side permanently lubricating the seal material, keeping it within its operating temperature range, keeping it from degrading, keeping it from losing the integrity that separates coolant from oil in a system that depends on that separation completely. Run those seals dry and the heat builds, the geometry changes, and the seal that was keeping coolant in and oil out begins to fail. Not immediately, not visibly, not in a way that announces itself with a warning light or a diagnostic code, or any of the obvious signals that would make the problem findable and fixable before it becomes catastrophic. It fails slowly, quietly, in the background, waiting. Mat Armstrong knows this. He said it himself on the second channel. He said, "We have seen what happened to my Huracan when it ran without coolant. Burn out the water pump seals." And there are a lot of water pumps on this Bugatti. That statement, made quietly on the second channel, not as a dramatic revelation, but as an honest acknowledgement or concern that had been sitting in the back of his mind throughout the final stages of this build. There are a lot of water pumps on this Bugatti, and every single one of them might have been running dry on the day Alex Gonzalez drove this car without coolant, and the time bomb that decision set is still ticking. Right there, underneath the custom exhaust and the rebuilt monocoque and the handmade radiators and the cross-reference parts from 8 different brands and everything else that makes this Bugatti the most extraordinary rebuild in YouTube history. Ticking. But to understand the full weight of the water pump shaft seal, you need to understand the specific chain of events that created it. Because the Bugatti was not driven without coolant by accident in the ordinary sense. It was not a casual oversight or a maintenance failure, or the kind of negligence that happens when a regular car owner ignores a warning light. It happened in the context of the crash that destroyed the car, the crash that triggered all of this. In the immediate aftermath of that crash, in the chaos and the adrenaline and the assessment of what had just happened, the car was moved, driven, without anyone necessarily knowing that the crash damage had already compromised the cooling system, that the coolant lines that the impact had crushed were not doing their job, that the fluid that the shaft seals needed to survive their operating conditions was not where it needed to be. And in the time between the crash and the discovery of the cooling damage, the pumps ran. The seals were subjected to conditions they were not designed to survive. And the question that sits at the heart of the finish line drama is whether they survived anyway, whether the specific conditions and the specific duration and the specific thermal load were within the margin that the seals could absorb without permanent damage, or whether they are compromised, right now, underneath everything, waiting for the moment the car is pushed hard enough and long enough for the consequence to announce itself. Now let us talk about what a shaft seal failure in a Bugatti Chiron actually looks like in practice, because this is where the time bomb metaphor becomes very concrete and very expensive. A shaft seal failure is not a dramatic event. It does not announce itself with a bang or a cloud of smoke or any of the immediately visible signals that make a failure easy to diagnose. It announces itself with slow contamination, coolant finding its way past the degraded seal into the oil side of the system, oil finding its way past the degraded seal into the coolant side. Two fluids that are designed to be permanently separated beginning to mix. And the consequences of that mixing in a system as complex as the W16 engine's lubrication and cooling architecture are severe and accumulative. Bearings running on contaminated oil, cooling circuits carrying oil contamination, a slow, invisible degradation of the system's ability to protect itself. And the moment it becomes visible, the moment the contamination is detectable through oil analysis or coolant analysis, or the specific warning patterns that these failures eventually produce, the cost of addressing it is a number that makes every other cost in this rebuild look manageable by comparison. And here is the cruelest detail of the timing. The water pump shaft seal concern does not appear in the early stages of the build. It does not reveal itself during the assessment phase or the structural work, or the parts sourcing, or the electronic diagnosis. It reveals itself under load, under sustained, real-world operating conditions that the workshop yard shakedown did not fully replicate. The first drive provided enough evidence that the car was mechanically functional, that it could move, that the transmission worked, that the engine ran, that the cooling system held temperature in the range the fans were designed to manage. But it did not run the car long enough or hard enough to reveal a slow shaft seal leak if one exists. The BCM reset and the IVA preparation, the next stages in this build's journey toward road legal status, will involve more sustained running, more thermal cycling, more of the conditions that a degraded seal cannot indefinitely withstand. And if a seal is compromised, if the decision to drive without coolant has left its mark on any of the multiple water pumps in this car's cooling architecture, the finish line that is right there visible and approaching could suddenly move very far away. But here is what Mat Armstrong's approach to this specific concern tells you about how he's evolved as a builder through this project. Because the water pump shaft seal concern is not something he could have addressed at any earlier stage of the build. Not because he was unaware of it. He was clearly aware of it. He mentioned it specifically and honestly on camera. But because addressing it requires a kind of investigation that is only possible once the car is running and the systems are operational and the fluids are where they need to be and the conditions exist to test whether the seals are doing their job. The rebuild process had to reach this point before the concern could be properly evaluated. And now that it has reached this point, now that the car is running and driving and approaching the finish line, the evaluation that determines whether the time bomb is real or theoretical is finally possible. Oil sampling, coolant sampling, the specific, methodical, unglamorous analysis of fluid quality that tells the truth about what the shaft seals have been doing since the day the car ran without coolant. And Mat Armstrong will do that analysis. On camera. Honestly, the way he does everything. Now let us talk about the IVA. Because the individual vehicle approval process is a specific bureaucratic challenge that stands between the Bugatti Chiron Persport and legal road use in the UK. And understanding what IVA requires, in the context of a car with a specific history and these specific modifications, is essential to understanding why the finish line that looks so close is surrounded by more obstacles than the first glance suggests. IVA is a process by which a vehicle that does not conform to standard type approval, a salvage rebuild, a heavily modified car, any vehicle that cannot simply be re-registered as it was before, is assessed for compliance with the safety and technical standards required for road use. The assessment is thorough. It covers lighting, emissions, safety systems, structural integrity, and a range of technical specifications that the assessor will check against the car's actual condition. And the Bugatti Chiron Persport in its current state, with its cross-reference parts from 8 brands and its handmade radiators and its Valvetronic exhaust and its custom interior and its Audi A3 airbags and its Mercedes-Benz Pyro fuse and its Honda Civic radiator cores and its 11-pound Amazon bolt, is not a standard configuration vehicle. It is unique, entirely, completely, unrepeatable unique. And unique vehicles present IVA challenges that standard configurations do not. The BCM reset is the other technical challenge, sitting between the current state of the car and the finished article. The body control module, the central electronic brain that manages the integration of the car systems, reset after the rebuild. And the BCM reset on a Bugatti Chiron is not a procedure that a standard diagnostic tool performs in 15 minutes. It is a process that requires the specific, proprietary tools and the specific knowledge and the specific authority that the BCM's manufacturers intended to be available only through the official service network. Which means that Mat Armstrong, who has been here before with every other proprietary system in this car, is here again with a BCM that needs resetting and a manufacturer whose official channels are not available to him. And the question of how the BCM reset gets done without factory support is the same question that every previous obstacle in this build has presented. What is the alternative? Who has the knowledge? Where's the window in the wall that Bugatti built to keep the specific process inside their network? And through all of this, through the water pump shaft seal concern and the IVA preparation and the BCM reset challenge and the finish line that keeps revealing new distances between itself and the car, the build community has been doing something that deserves recognition. They have been helping. Mat Armstrong's audience has not been passive through the final stages of this build. They have been actively contributing, flagging concerns in the comments before the team found them, sharing technical knowledge about specific systems that the official documentation does not cover, connecting Mat Armstrong with specialists who have experience with the specific challenges the build has presented, the community that formed around this rebuild through honesty and transparency, and the specific kind of investment that only genuine storytelling creates has become a resource. A genuine, technical, practically useful resource that has contributed to the build's progress in ways that go beyond moral support. And the BCM Reset Challenge and the IVA preparation are the next problems that community is going to bring its collective knowledge to. Now, let us talk about what the finish line actually represents beyond the obvious. Because finishing this car, getting it road legal, driving it on public roads with a valid registration and a current IVA certificate is not just a personal achievement for Mat Armstrong or a victor in the conflict with Bugatti.